Hi, this is Sunday the 18th of July. This is the Democratic Alliance Labour Report. We've had quite a week, to say the least. We've seen the whole of KwaZulu-Natal being affected by riots and looting, partially in Gauteng. We're quite lucky in that it hasn't affected many of the other provinces, but certainly in the Western Province we've seen nothing. Now that doesn't come as a surprise, it doesn't come as a shock to anyone. The reality is, you've heard me over the last 2 years on these podcasts, and I've said that with the unemployment that we've got in South Africa at the moment, and I think it's entirely caused by the governing party, the ANC, to a large degree has created this monster, and we've seen what we've spoken about for so long, is that with 50% unemployment in this country, 65% of the youth unemployed, we've seen that it can't be sustainable. I have in the past said that we're going to have the makings of an Arab Spring. Well, this is the makings of an Arab Spring. We are sitting here busy experiencing what we've been talking about. Now obviously there have been some external causes as well. I mean, obviously we've seen the jailing of President Zuma, former President Zuma. Yes, that did create a bit of a stir. And yes, we had a few people who are upset about that. And that's going to be expected. But we've had quite a few people who have been ringleaders to this. They've arrested, they say, 14 of them. And this has created a problem in that once they had struck that match, the unemployed came out in their masses. We've been very lucky here in the Western Province because the unemployment is not as bad, and we've got a Premier that has put together a plan. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson. This certainly is going to affect the employment in the country. It's going to affect future employment, and it's going to create a lot more retrenchments and probably dismissals over this period. Now, as I sit here, we're already seeing the problems in that some of those factories, some of those institutions are not going to reopen. That means those people have to get retrenched, which means that there's going to be more pressure on the UIF, more pressure on government itself, and there's certainly going to be a lot of pressure on the economy. Yes, some of those places will open, but when will they open? Those that have been burnt down and looted completely, could be a year, could be 2 years. So we've got real problems there because KwaZulu-Natal in itself has got some of the worst unemployment in the country. And in fact, that was the tinderbox for a lot of the looting. A lot of those people were honestly hungry. Yes, people were stealing TV sets and fridges, etc. People will join something like that. If orchestrated, they will join it very quickly if they're unemployed. Now, when they have to start claiming their UIF for those that are employed and those places that have been burnt to the ground, will the UIF have enough money? Will there be enough institutionalized administration to handle it? We don't know. The Minister of Employment and Labour has kept wholly silent over this past week. We've heard nothing. We've heard very little from the President of the country. The only party leader that we've seen that actually was there was John Steenhuisen from the Democratic Alliance. And he was there on the ground, helping people, making sure things were done. What has happened here in the Western Province is they've put together a proper command council. And as soon as they see any sparks of violence or looting or anything of that nature, it's crushed immediately. The only real problem we've had in the Western Province is the taxi wars, but that's been ongoing for years, and they're still trying to sort that out. Now let's just have a look, very careful look at the employment situation with regard to the real problems that we got over the riots. We know that the UIF was difficult to claim in the first place, but just think about it. Think about the factories that burnt down, where their computers have been destroyed, their paper records have been thrown away. Are they going to be able to put proper paperwork together for the people who are going to go through the retrenchment. They're not going to open again. They're not going to open for a year. Some of them are going to declare bankruptcy. That's going to be a real problem. Yes, some people have kept their records in the cloud. But even then, it's very difficult to go and reconstruct everything if everything else is destroyed, including all the paperwork and the computers. So I can imagine that staff who are going to have to claim their UIF are going to wait a long time for this. People will be starving. The other problem we've got is that those places that aren't going to retrench, those places that are going to reopen, maybe in 6 months' time, maybe in a year's time, what will people do in the meantime? Can they claim their UIF? Will they get salary? Probably not. You will recall when we had the lockdown over the COVID-19, the real strict lockdowns, people didn't earn their salary. Although the Minister of Employment and Labour said people should get their salary, he was giving the wrong legal advice. And so people didn't get their salary during that time. They could claim the TERS. And some people are still waiting from March 2020 for their TERS. That's over a year now. So one can expect that there'll be problems, and those problems will probably cause more riots. And so we've got a problem with that. I know that the police are now on the ground and that the military has been called out. A little too late, of course. The Democratic Alliance immediately called for the police to get together and for a command council to be put together very quickly. We did that in the Western Province. They couldn't get it together in KwaZulu-Natal. They couldn't get it together in Gauteng. That, of course, is going to affect the whole country, because now we're seeing that there could be food problems, there could be fuel problems, there could be medical problems. There are all sorts of problems. Our government needs to get its act into gear. They just can't seem to organize it. One says that they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. And that's a real problem, that we're relying on this government to try and sort us out. And it's very little to rely on, unfortunately. And so what we're looking at is problems across the country, because even though the riots occurred in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng, that does affect us. I, for one, had to go and put in some petrol just in case. Even some of the shopping centres in the Western Province decided to close just in case. Now, all that leads to problems. When they close, are the staff going to earn? We don't know the answers to that, and we're expecting the Labour Court eventually to come up with those answers. That'll be challenged by the unions, and the Labour Court will answer us, but only in a year's time. So what do people do in the meantime? And so we go on and on. We need to once again say to government, relax the labour laws, decouple small business from large business, make sure that we have more employment in the country. With employment as it stands, this is a trouble waiting to explode. With employment as it stands now, we know, and everyone in the world knows, that South Africa has got the worst unemployment in the world, and we've got the worst productivity in the world. What is going on? We've got some good people, but we don't have the government to support it properly. So thank you for listening to me once again. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance.